Well, of course, the meeting is going to go downhill from now on. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining our regularly scheduled Solve SaaSOps live virtual meeting. We have been doing some unfiltered ones, which are off the record on alternative weeks, but this is our regular scheduled one. The last one we recorded and put on YouTube ended up just being a round robin discussion about managed working. But this one, we're actually going to go back to our schedule, our regularly scheduled programming, which was going to be Rose talking about her. Is it a book or an e-book or a pamphlet or an e-pamphlet?
So it was supposed to be a blog post, and then I wrote 3 solid pages of text, and they decided to make it into an ebook. So that's what happened. Right. That's how it became the IT handbook, because they were like, they were going to do something that said like 45 questions to help you decide. And I was like, no, let's not do that. That's way too many.
Right. Yes. So yeah, we'll have Rose talk about her ebook about choosing the right SaaS application, and then we'll do some other round robin discussions and a bit of a, I guess, a Solve update towards the end of. I guess we've got about half an hour left, so it'll be a relatively short one, or maybe we can go up to 3 o'clock. So I think everybody knows who everybody is. We've got all our names. This is one of the beauties of recording it in Zoom as opposed to using another program. I'm sure, you know, it does allow us to have that video export of the grid view, the gallery view. Has just a quick show of hands, those of us that do still use Hangouts for our video conferencing, I like Hangouts. I'm not a Zoom fan. Who is using that extension that got somebody built that does the grid view? I love that. It's so amazing.
Mike, did that go through security review?
My security reviewed it and actually wrote their own in Tamper Monkey. Basically, just copied the code. But yeah, we're using that.
Yeah, I looked at the permissions. It didn't seem like it was anything bad or untoward. It is amazing to see sort of 84 people, tiny little thumbnails, postage stamps of people on a call. I do find it is very, very processor intensive though. So we'll certainly kick your fan on.
Google doing it now? They're going to release the gallery view?
Yes, I have seen them. I have seen mock-ups. I've seen it in use. It's going to be better than the extension.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
aren't they limiting it? It's limiting it to 16 though.
16? I thought they said 84 as well or something. But
I mean, so Zoom is up to 49. That's it.
Yeah.
I thought there was
16 would be good. I just hope that when when you do record the meeting, it does give you, that gallery video like, we can get out of Zoom for this sort of stuff.
Well, and you saw though that Zoom has basically 2 different versions.
Yeah.
Any recording has both the gallery and the speaker view.
Yeah.
And
you can switch.
It does take up a lot of space. Like we use up our Zoom recording storage quite quickly because of that.
Right. Yeah. You just got to be, I guess, in the habit of downloading those videos and putting them on Google Drive. So yeah. I'm sure there'll be lots of updates to come, which will be good. All right. Choosing a SaaS application. Writing about it in an ebook.
Why?
Because for funsies.
Rose.
Who hasn't read it? Does anybody not read it? Alex.
Our guests haven't read it.
Jost, you're ashamed. Go read it.
No, I know I need to read it. In fact, I'm gonna.
So the funny part about writing anything like this is that like I've changed those templates since that blog post was uploaded. That's why I made them Google Docs, because then I could do that. Because we just did a SaaS evaluation right after that was released, and I was like, oh, I'll use my template, and then
I found some gaps.
So yeah, I don't know what there is to say much about it. I feel like, because obviously I talked about this in the first Solve.
Yeah, because so it was a working party, because we did go through the document, and this is and I something that would be good for us to do, to pick up and do as a project for other things.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like it evolved over time. Like the more I thought about it and the more I wrote it, like, I don't know. It didn't come out what I was originally intending it to be, and it didn't necessarily come out. I mean, it came out I think it came out great, but like it was just a different angle than I was originally expecting to write. So, because the more I looked, the more I saw that there were like so many guides to choosing SaaS tools, like from all kinds of people, like all over the internet, and I was like, so I don't know. I felt I was happy with like doing the comprehensive approach and saying like, hey, like these are maybe things you haven't thought of before, but you need to consider these too, right?
So in the process of writing it, what changed in the way you looked at evaluating SaaSOps?
Well, so I was originally going to write a blog post about what is best in breed and how to determine what best in breed apps are.
Yeah.
And then I realized that that's not really useful because number one, I don't want to be the person who defines what's best in breed.
Yeah, there is.
Right, like I don't think there's a way to define that. I think the populace just defines what's best in breed, right? Zoom is best in breed because we all like it, we all use it, right? Not just
and there's a range, right?
What?
There's always going to be a range or like a spectrum a little bit. But okay, you can't. I mean, having one tool to rule them all is again we all know.
Oh, and I don't think best in breed ever says like you can be the only one in your niche who's best in breed. Like, but that's originally what the blog post was going to be about. And then the more I worked on it, the more I really got to like where we were at with when I discussed it earlier, which is, you know, like how do people choose these apps? And then beyond that, I was like, actually, you know what, like let's talk more about like how we make this sustainable, like how we make this scalable, because we had a couple of incidents between like the inception of the blog post and a couple and the actual release of it where like my team was forced to kind of clean up for departments purchasing software, right? And I realized just how little sometimes people know about choosing SaaSOps. Like how little they know about choosing SaaS tools. Sometimes they're just like, oh, it's a pretty website, let me just buy this thing. Right? And so like we had an incident, that the one I described in the article, which is where somebody came to us and said, we want to purchase this thing. And we were like, cool, we don't have time to deal with this right now, so let's just purchase it for you. And then it turned out that the app didn't even exist. They had stood up a website and a product page, and then it wasn't actually for sale yet. It was still in development.
Can I ask how many of you, Rose included, have used like the RFP process for purchasing software? And
well, so we don't have a procurement kind
right.
of arm.
No. I am brand new to the procurement team that just spun up at our company, and that's the direction we're going. So
yeah, I've written up a standard RFP that I just edit for each one.
Yeah.
And then because we have a lot of federal clients, so
you have to
prove to them that we're doing everything in the right way.
Rose brings up a good point where it's like that business owner, those team members went out and basically got scammed.
Yeah.
Right. Now on the flip side, they want to make sure that whatever vendor or whatever buyer is going out there is a legitimate buyer and somebody that they don't want to
so it's funny too. So we're a smaller organization, we're a nonprofit organization. I actually had to Google what RFP meant because I was like, that's not language that anybody uses around here. No. It's only, so we're getting a SOC 2, and because of the SOC 2, we have to have a process for approving some of these things. So we implemented a security process. We created our own acronym for it. It's real cute. It's STAR. It's the STARS.
I hate acronyms.
I know. It's okay. You work in IT, Dominic. There's acronyms all over the place. But
we banned them.
So we released that, and as part of that, like that can't be subjective, right? Like that's a very like is it or isn't it kind of security review. Do they or don't they? And for what I do, right, those 45 questions, like some of them are very, very subjective. Like I was like, does it remind me of Windows XP? That's a subjective question. And so, but it did raise the question of like how do we get people, because this is a new thing too, like people have been allowed to purchase their own software up to this point, and starting now, they're not going to be able to, not at least without a security review.
The movement from the Wild West mentality it's painful.
Yes, and so that's gonna, I think, drive a lot more, and that's part of why I did the blog post, right? It was for us as much as it was, you know, for me to put it out there. But so I think we're getting closer to something resembling an RFP, but my big thing is like I don't like bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake. Like it really annoys me to have to deal with that stuff in my life. So like I don't like to inflict that on other people, especially because they blatantly ignore me at every turn. Right? So I don't know. I would be curious to hear about RFP processes that, you know, people seem to enjoy and, you know, aren't just creating a paper trail for paper trail's sake.
In the processes that I wrote for our ISO certification, we only do the RFP process for anything that's going to be over $30,000 in spend.
Right.
So,
well, and I think so
those are like definitely enterprise-wide things.
Yeah, and accounting has their own justifications for like what is considered, you know, something that needs an RFP. But from a security perspective, we don't care how much it costs, right? We have to review it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everything goes through a security review.
Right. So it's sort of like, how do you do that on that side?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the same time saying like, we only care about the stuff that's actually gonna, you know, be a drop in the bucket on our budget.
Well, I had to actually work with finance, and anyone that submits an expense report with any software expenses automatically gets denied, and they don't get paid out for it. They have to go back to me.
See, we've been trying to push that.
We might actually transition to that. So we just implemented Blissfully.
And what is Blissfully for those of us that?
Blissfully is a SaaS spend management tool. The unique thing about Blissfully is they have an email integration that surfaces invoices from emails on your domain.
Nice.
It's wild. And it's really interesting because we have a lot of problems in our finance systems where people who expense software purchases don't actually, like, we can't always tell what those are because finance doesn't require them to write in the name of the software. So sometimes they just put software purchase. And I'm like, great. God. So from our finance accounting books, it says you paid it out to a person. And then from the expense side, it says their reason code was software purchase. Great. Thank you. That's helpful. And so, yeah, I think more and more as we try to like rein in the Wild West, it's going to be a lot of like, I think, Colleen, your approach is actually really interesting because, right, if you can't expense it at all.
Yeah, and it took me a couple of years to get everyone on board with that, but it's there now.
Right. And I'm not sure that we always necessarily want, I think we'll probably have like a scapegoat for that, right? Like,
and it was basically like, I've reined in most people and there were like two or three people that just kept going rogue.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay.
I think we have 2 or 3.
They're probably senior people too, right?
I wouldn't say senior, but really? They're definitely been there a long time, have a lot of knowledge, and just don't like rules.
Kind of they should know better, but of course they don't.
The rules don't apply to them.
It's a management issue.
They're grandfathered in, yeah.
It's always terrible to see an expense report for, you know, somebody buying Office so that they could use it at home, and you're like, hang on a minute, with our licenses, you can activate Office on multiple machines. Why, you know, didn't they just ask us, oh, can I have, you know, Office on my personal machine? It's like, yeah, just use your normal, you know, Office 365 logins and all.
We had one that wasn't even like that. We had like basically gotten rid of Office for most people. And like after a couple of years, we found somebody who had been using her daughter's school license in order to use Office 365 for her work.
Oh.
We were like, you could have just asked us.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally one of our like ticket request types.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how we take it for granted because a lot of these team members that do that stuff is like, well, the last place I worked, they didn't have any money, so we had to do it ourselves. And there's all sorts of different reasons and excuses, but it's kind of wild that when you start tracking those down and actually and getting to those people, finding out the reason why. It's like, well, I clicked on a trial and I just never thought about it and put my credit card number in. I'm like, what?
Well, and I think some of it is human nature, because like, especially at one of our orgs, like we've been the friendly IT, like the approachable IT. Like, we've been working on that for a long time, and like the IT manager there has been there for 9 years, which is longer than most of the people at the company. And so like he's well known and like stuff like that, but like people do it anyway. They know they can talk to us. And when we say that, they're like, oh yeah, I should have just done that. I'm sorry. Like, but for some reason, like it's just, there's just something in our lizard brains.
I see it a lot.
Sorry, Alex, you were saying?
I see it a lot with a younger half of the working force, where they're used to doing things on their own, and if they haven't worked in a controlled environment, especially like out of college or something like that, then they're basically getting things done the way they know how. And you have it should be part of training, like an onboarding kind of thing, but it's lacking because people don't know how this works. Like, you know everything, you Googled it, that's great. You don't even think about all these things we have to do.
Right.
So,
Alex, that's the reason why I implemented this also this month, some processes, because I am young, I'm easily convinced, I just buy shit. And I can because I own the company.
Problem at his org.
But it's not really, I just can do that, but it's just not good. So I've actually created a Google form with like 70 questions, just to rein myself in a little bit.
Does that Google form have a section for fridges?
Like have another beer.
Well, no. It should, probably. What security features does it have?
No. You're having a hard time
point.
buying the fridge because you have issues making purchases that large. And yet you're telling us that you sometimes just buy software because
it's just £20 a month.
Could the fridge people not easily convince you? Like, have you had these fridges?
Now, if they just gave him one low monthly payment, he'd buy like that.
I mean, my software just £10 here or £50 there, whatever. But a fridge is like hundreds on like one.
I will say, so that exactly that's the subscription model, the monthly price per user. Sometimes not even per user, just monthly price. Like that stuff, I think, was originally targeted at millennials, and it fucking works. And so the software stuff, it's the same thing. Like that's how we have 50 fucking project management tools. So,
yeah, that's why I always extrapolate everything out to yearly when I tell people, and total cost and those kind of things. Because if it only costs $200 to get your whole team up and running on this, that's cool. But if it's $2,400 plus the add-ons you want.
Yeah, and I love when they come to me like,
it's only
$4 a month. I'm like, what? We need the enterprise.
Right. We need the enterprise version.
Never mind. And this is how much it would cost per year after taxes.
Yeah, now it's 12.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Which is why the whole move for enterprise licensing is now moving into like a value-based or a solution-based as opposed to the per-seat price. And I hate per-seat prices. Because I mean, that means it's like this nonstop barrage of.
I'm glad that we actually got into this.
More seats on this system. I need more seats on this system. I need more licenses.
Yeah. The issue I have with per seat licenses is like I don't like Slack, but I do love their pricing model, especially for the lower tiers, pro and standard, whatever it is, where you get paid per use. And I've said to many vendors that I've worked with that may have diagramming tools or security encryption tools, I've said, don't charge me per fixed license. Give me a fair usage, a fair billing usage cost, and I'll enable it for everybody, and I'll happily pay for what is accurately used. But if you tell me that you're going to charge me per license, then I'm going to restrict those licenses, and I'm going to restrict the adoption of that program, because I can't give a Lucid chart license to 2,000 people.
Right. And then even like other products like Lucidchart or Adobe that don't even have any analytics on actual usage, and you have to go like every year we go and like, okay, hey, Colin, are you still using that license? Or like, oh, I forgot I had it, but I need it.
Everything is so expensive.
Adobe is so expensive.
It's so ridiculous.
You just throw money at them.
To be honest, we keep a crazy number of Adobe licenses for people who just think
everybody needs Acrobat Pro.
Yeah, they need the Acrobat Pro. That's what they think they need.
Right.
And so like we have just an insane number of them that are probably not being used, and the analytics doesn't offer anything, right?
No,
like
there is no analytics.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say from Adobe's part too, like if somebody purchases a separate subscription and then you try to combine them, Adobe's official recommendation is that they cancel their account and you give them a new one. Because they have no way to merge those accounts.
Well, that's why I upgraded and paid a little bit more for the enterprise licensing and have it under single sign-on, so no one can buy their own with our domain.
No.
Right.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Like the new Oracle. It's just like this behemoth that they know they can do whatever they want, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like,
absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. In the legal space, it's different though.
Sorry,
because in the legal space, for the legal SaaS applications that are out there, they make you pay for every attorney you have, even if attorneys never log in. So we have 12 attorneys, and I have 2 that have never logged into their system, and they still bill us for this.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people doing active user billing.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I'd rather do it per seat. Like this person uses it. I don't mind paying that, but they're afraid that you'll buy one and then everyone will use it and steal all of their information.
And share all the same accounts.
Then allow us SSO, and this problem is solved. Allow SSO on the lowest tier, and this problem is solved immediately. Because
the
old
solution to that was you make the price of one seat so high that it didn't matter if they were sharing it.
Right.
I've been I just set up Zoom, and I'm pleasantly surprised with that. The management there, because I'm able to manage users without paying for it. So I have, licensed users, and everyone else gets the same rule set. Whereas most systems, you have to pay just to enforce some kind of criteria.
So it's funny that we moved on to this topic, because I think this is a natural extension of the topic of my blog post, right? And this is actually what I think I want my next project to be, is a piece on like SaaS pricing. How it works.
So
some of the issues that we have with it. Because I don't know of a single IT person who is 100% happy with the way SaaS companies price their products. I know I went on a rant in SaaSOps like a week ago about how a freaking utility add-on for Slack is $7 a month for the basic tier and $20 a month. It's something that normally, like if it was a Chrome extension, it would be open source. Like it's not something that I would consider paying, but because it's a Slack app, everybody's monetizing those things.
Yeah.
So,
I think we should write an open letter to the industry and get as many IT professionals to sign it to say, we the people would prefer this type of licensing. We know, your investors probably want something higher, but
and we know
you're just where we are. We're gonna be able to increase adoption.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but if it makes more money, they're going to do that.
Well, the hard part though is for people who work for schools, and like I work for a nonprofit, right? Like we have money, but we're not loaded, and there's definitely no revenue to be talking about, right? That can our situation. So I think it's funny because as SaaSOps becomes, or as SaaS tools become more and more ubiquitous, right? The people who need them the most, schools, right? They need a high level of automation, and the only way to accomplish that is with modern tools. And so,
right, the smaller you are, the more automation you have to depend on.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's just about the scale, right? So like a school might be only 100 staff members, but there's thousands of students. So you're like, it's a different scale of stuff. And like, I know that there's somebody who uses Better Cloud who's been telling them for years that they need to figure out like their alert system, and their like workflow back checks and stuff like that, because like when you're dealing with 12,000 people, you can't just go back and do it by hand. And so,
yeah.
I don't know. I think that's who it's for, right? Like there's a lot of small businesses and a lot of, I don't know, medium businesses and enterprises, right? Who are upset about the pricing and how it works and the per seat thing that doesn't really seem to work for anybody really, except for like people who only have like 7 employees.
Well, even if the per seat thing worked, I think what's interesting too about the price is I recently learned that the price that's on the website's not the price.
Right.
For G Suite specifically, that's the one that I was like, oh, what? We got enterprise for a lot less than it's advertised on there.
That's what it is.
Well, so that's the other thing is like if people are going to discount that stuff, they need to advertise that.
Right.
They don't need to. I don't think they need to advertise how much. I think that's like a business decision,
Right.
but like I think they should advertise that they do.
Yeah, but that's
why
always,
there is a call us
that's even with
section
like,
for enterprise people.
Also, listed prices are never the real prices.
I know, it's just
Right.
like buying
Except
a
with
car.
Always get that.
Except for
The only
Atlassian.
people
fridge.
those listed prices trick are the people who just, you know, put out their credit card and buy anything, right? Like those users
What
that we're
about,
talking about, they never negotiate.
Has anyone
not
has
good.
anyone
That's one of
ever
those.
has anyone ever gotten a discount on Atlassian software?
I think we're getting one. Yeah,
I have.
Really?
we have a nonprofit discount.
Yeah.
I just bought Zoom on a credit card, so I'll be that guy. There's only 10 seats. I'm sure. it
Asana.
will
Well,
go.
the great thing about Zoom, if you
Never-
don't if you don't have a rep yet, get a rep.
Okay.
Become friends with them. Their bonuses are based on a number of licenses sold, not how much they make. So at the end of their quarter, my rep always comes to me like, "Hey, I need to sell 20 more licenses. I'll give them to you for the price of 5." I'm like, "Done." Every quarter.
That's a great model.
You
Yeah.
know this is being recorded, right?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Everyone do
Do I,
that.
do I have to edit you
We're gonna be
out?
looking up like
She didn't give any names.
No, I didn't give any names.
Yes.
Asana never gives discounts. For
Well, so
example.
Zoom is a funny case because we're on one of my accounts has a grandfather pricing. We have 360 Zoom licenses and 360 Zoom Room licenses. Yeah, for like
That's a lot of Zoom rooms.
Oh, it was like when they first came out, I guess. I don't know. They didn't have a way to like license them separately, so we just got them. And so now
Nobody's fixed the glitch.
now we have that many, but we can't do anything to our account.
Right.
Like if we add or remove any number of licenses, we'll lose our pricing. So
They're just waiting for the day. They're waiting for the day that you have 351.
right.
Well, grandfather clauses are meant to be broken. They're anybody that has those breaks them all the time.
No, you fight them. There
You
is.
just have to find the right
I've
person
had some
to do it.
benefits of being on a early alpha and being one of the first paying customers of.
Oh, I mean, we
think
like being on
two
grandfather
or
pricing.
three SaaS-based applications, and you know what we're currently paying for a license is a lot less than what they're charging new licenses. And each renewal period, they're like, oh, you know, you're getting like, you know, a huge discount over the current, you know, market rate. And it's like, yeah, but I've been using you for, you know, 5 years. So I was, you know.
Well, and for
initial
some things,
customer.
right, it's almost like a loyalty benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Loyalty.
Should be.
I've recently signed. I've just
Loyalty in
recently
a
signed
subscription
new-
model. Yeah.
I've just recently signed new phone contracts for the company, and this is the 4th renewal of 2-year contracts, and we got nothing. Like
Really?
list price.
Who did you
Who are
sign
you
with?
using?
Yeah.
Vodafone Germany. I'm not gonna switch for like 10 people. Still, we got nothing this time, and I'm still a bit mad. But I'm not gonna switch for this.
No.
That's
You should
too
just be
much.
happy to know that your European cell phone charges are a lot less than the
No.
ones anyway.
I'm having German charges which are similar to US prices. Everything else in Europe is cheaper than
Okay.
Germany. Germany is the
question-
second most expensive country in Europe.
Wow. One question I do have for everybody talking about licensing and agreements, license terms. So I love rolling monthly contracts, but of course, very few people like them. You know, I would prefer a yearly contract. Some companies, you know, they always want to do a 3-year. They always want to lock you in. And I always say to them, if you lock me into a 3-year contract, at the end of 2.5 years, I'm going to actively search for a replacement, and I'll compare you against everybody else on the market, and I might leave. But if you do it monthly rolling, or a 1-year annual,
I'll get to it when I get to it.
I'm less likely to start looking around. How do others deal or feel with that?
I agree.
I prefer the longer contracts because you often get better pricing on them. And it's something like set and forget it. And then I have a calendar thing for, 6 months out to start looking.
I mean, I'll agree with Colin in that, like, you don't necessarily get better pricing, but like, honestly, like we do actually like look for replacements less for things that don't have contract renewals.
Yeah.
Like, because like it just never occurs to us, right? Like that thing is never coming up for renewal, so we're never looking for a replacement.
Yeah.
I switched to yearly pricing.
Yeah, but people, the companies are
I have
really
less
mean sometimes about not signing more than a year. Like sometimes they are really bitter about it, and I'm like,
I haven't encountered that.
Yeah. So the only thing I don't like about month to month is that you can't negotiate the contract really if you're doing month to month. Like you can't add any additional provisions or anything like that, which our legal team would not like. So,
but I think you can often negotiate. I've been okay a couple of times if initially they come to you with a 3-year price, and it's like, well, if you can do that price for 3 years, give it to me on 1 year, and I'm less likely to leave after 3 years, and you'll get me for 4 or 5 years. But if you want to stick to a 3-year contract, I will actively look for a competitor in 2.5 years. Because you'd have to do your due diligence and make sure that it was the right product to be reinvesting in.
But shouldn't you always just look every at least 3 years?
I mean,
or the most 3 years?
You should.
Yeah, for most systems, I'm not gonna implement something else within 2 years,
right?
Unless something goes horribly wrong. And yeah, it depends on the size of the contract and the vendor itself, but a 3-year deal can be way better if you know that their rates increase at this amount over 3 years and you're locked in. That makes sense. That being said, we don't sign those because we want the agility to change our mind and change our platform. We just signed one 3-year deal because it's like with Trimble, which is like the only software company that does what we need. So it was we argued about it the whole time, and they just don't offer any other kind of contracts because they're acting like Microsoft, Adobe kind of giant where they have the control. But yeah, if it's competitive, it's monthly, and if we don't like it, we stop using it.
Yeah, I generally just use that as a tool for negotiations. One thing I've found is like if you have a big upfront cost for like an onboarding package or something like that, a lot of times you can split that over how many years you're signing a contract for, which makes finance slightly happier.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to get through.
Yeah.
One of the things that, because we've been going through some acquisitions and stuff, like I think that it's the one thing that makes this so clear, because none of these companies I think really expected to have to change their mind 3 years on, or the people who sign these contracts are no longer there, right? So like in those situations, I mean, it's really just like, I think that's where I at first I was like, I mean, 1 to 3 years on a tool we like not a really big deal. But like, I think the thing that got me on the 1 year was that just like, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, right, we're in the middle of this pandemic right now, and that's going to affect a lot of businesses. What about the ones who sign 5-year contracts?
Yeah.
On the flip side
and
of that,
it's
we
really
talked about some
annoying
partners.
To be that person who has to try to get out of a 5-year contract, or to just say we're going to eat the cost of this because there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
On the flip side of that argument, like given current world events, like we have some partners that were, their business model was set to, we're SaaS and we do monthly contracts because that's what everybody likes and it whatever. And in a week, they lost 90% of their clients because they'd like,
and it was
we're on a monthly contract.
Agreement.
This is a pandemic. Freak out. What can we clear out? Oh, this is monthly. Bye. And now that business is all but gone.
Right.
This is why vendors don't like this in general. It's because they can't budget, they can't forecast because it's too ethereal.
Yeah. But then like the vendors that have worked with us through this, like our meeting room and meeting room booking system and guest check-in system, it was set to renew right when all this happened. And I was like, hey, either we're going to have to defer this, I'm going to have to do something else, or we're going to drastically reduce our number of licenses to like one of everything, and we're going to be $100. And they really worked with us on deferring and extending our contract, making it a 1.5-year contract instead of a year for the same price and stuff. And those are the ones that you remember you want to work with more.
That you take with to your next job.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like along those same lines, think about how in my use case, right, they lose 90% of their clients. Let's pretend, clearly it wasn't like a mission critical app, but let's pretend it was for the other 10% of the clients that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that business is basically gone, right? They can't sustain themselves for that 10% of their client base anymore. So now, because you bought into the product because it was monthly contracting, now that monthly contracting is coming to bite you in the butt for stuff outside of your control.
These guys don't have anything to keep their business going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's why a lot of times they'll try and target their big fish and lock them in with a contract and actually get a baseline that they can count on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the bigger the customer, the bigger the easier to
Yeah,
get
they'll
them
give you a
on
much
their
better rate
5-year.
because you have 10,000 seats. So yeah, we'll give you a quarter.
I think this
30%
is
of the cost.
also, interestingly enough, I think this is also related to the like every SaaS app wants to be the center of your workday kind of situation that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of tools are trying to figure out how to be indispensable. And unfortunately, they're all reaching the same conclusion. But
yeah.
I have 2 tools that are indispensable, or 3 tools that are indispensable.
Yeah.
It's G Suite.
Yeah.
It's my Freshservice, and it's my CRM, which is Freshsales. And those are the 3.
Mine isn't
indispensable
even like
tools.
my service desk. It's G Suite, Slack, and Zoom, and that's it.
Yeah.
This could be.
I can even. We're Office 365, but I can deal without that.
We deal with end
Slack and
customers,
Zoom.
which is why it's the service desk for us. So.
Yeah.
This could be a great topic for another week. Is how do you move? What could you move? Is it, because we've talked about contracts and being locked in and evaluating, should you, go to a different product? It's a monumental, giant technological and also cultural shift if you were going to go from G Suite to Office 365, just because Office 365, we're going to offer you, $2 less per user. If you decided, all right, I'm not going to use Slack anymore. I'm going to go to, I don't know, what else is out there? Chat or Teams. Say you're going to move back to Teams. All of your users would end up creating shadow IT versions of Slack anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Unless your finance isn't approving software.
Yeah, but then they would do the free version and it would be completely unmanaged.
Right.
You wouldn't have a security, you wouldn't have MFA. And then, but then do you block it on the corporate network? Do you block it on corporate machines? Everybody will buy a $200 Chromebook and work from Starbucks.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense because Blair's positioning, right, is like, what happens if this app disappears tomorrow? Like, what are you going to use instead? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I think for most of my stuff, my gut reaction, my initial reaction is like, oh, we'll just figure it out. Like, it's something we can. It's not required. It's nice, right, for most of this stuff. But you're right, Colin, like when you take away the SSO integrations and when you take away the directories and the HR systems and the better clouds, right, that tie everything together, like then you're going to end up with a lot more shadow IT, which is where we started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's typically the only situation I would, without some huge movement, change a platform is if they're going out of business. Because if it's working today and the business is used to it, then changing it is only going to impede people doing their jobs. It's going to cost more than sticking with the same product because the total cost is always, 100 hours of IT time and training and all of this nonsense that you have to do just to get people to use a different platform. It's not worth it unless you have a really good reason. So if it's a directive from above or there's a financial change, like when G Suite changed their prices recently, that could have been a trigger for a lot of people. Like it has to be a really good reason unless you have nothing to do. but that's typically not the
One
case.
thing
Yeah.
that I noticed we haven't brought up is you can keep the same product but buy from a different seller sometimes.
Yeah, we just
Which
started
we've
using
reseller, yeah.
reseller.
done that to save costs with G Suite actually.
Right, resellers, yeah, going direct using a reseller, often get a better reseller price as with some of these. Like I used to buy from Dell directly, but when I went then through my reseller, I could get a better price from the reseller because they were, buying more devices off of Dell, overall. This would be a brilliant discussion for a whole other section. Would be what tools would we use, or what would a world look like if we weren't using the best of breed or the everyday products? I had my first Chime call today. Anybody know what Chime is?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Amazon,
Chime
Amazon
is
one?
used. It's Amazon's video
their internal.
conferencing systems. Yeah, by Sean. I had my first Chime call. Pretty good. Worked in a browser, could download the application, and I was thinking to myself, if I wasn't using Hangouts, or I wasn't. Oh, Colleen's got to jump as well.
Sorry.
That's okay. What programs would I use? If I wasn't using Office 365 and G Suite, it would be interesting to do some tests and sort of create a company that's using Zoho Office or whatever Amazon's document management program is. I know they have some document stuff, and using Blue Jeans.
I guess it does beg the question sometimes, right? Because it's like, is Amazon using G Suite, or are they using Microsoft Office 365? Well, no, actually, it makes sense that they might come up with their own. But if they are, what is that going to do to the market?
Yeah.
We already
Well, that's
have.
what Chime is. Chime was an internal video chat.
Well, that's what Slack
and they
was
started
too.
selling it.
Slack started
Yeah.
as an internal app. And so, yeah, we could definitely do that for a topic for another time, Colin.
Yeah. So to make it easier for topics for another time, and also for people being reminded about these calls and for signing up, with the great help of BetterCloud and Michael Stone, with his app script magic, we now have a new landing site, whatever the technical term is for it, for SaaSOps.life. So yeah, if you go to SaaSOps.life, it now has a new graphic, a funky new form you can fill in.
Fancy.
We'll add some other bits. Mike's just put that in the chat. So use it, abuse it, break it. Mike and I are going, have created so many fake accounts for ourselves. Filling in that form goes to Mike and I, so we can see who's going to attend, and we'll work to be more organized and more structured, and try and keep these bi-weekly discussions going, because there are so many great topics.
No security.txt here.
Are we going to have
What?
Unfiltered sessions?
We'll still do while we've got time. I think while there's a need for it. We'll do the every other week. So every alternate weeks we'll do a recorded series, and then we'll just do an ad hoc, unfiltered. And we might even do a solve after dark or after hours, because I know some people
I'd stick with after hours.
It's always after hours, Dominic.
It's dark here already, so it's after dark.
Maybe
here in Germany.
After hours in North America, because there were some people on the chat channel that are like, I can never make it during the day. I've always got stuff to do. So
you got to plan around it.
Surprised if I show up anyway. If it's like at 2 a.m. in the morning, don't.
Yeah, well, if we do it, you know what? If we do it late enough in the evening in North America, we could get people in APAC to join in their morning. We could get people in Singapore who are 12 hours ahead to join.
That's true.
All right. Well, we'll end just before the top of the hour. I know a lot of people have dropped off. I'm thankful for the great conversations and list of other things that we need to tackle and discuss and investigate, as well as doing our day jobs, because of course we've all got busy day jobs as well. So
sometimes you can make them work for you. Like I did. I was like, I need a process for this. Let me just write a blog post here.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that changes and how other people utilize that next renewal period. I'll tell my vendor, oh, I'm just going to read this article before we discuss the next.
Walk through it real quick.
Can you answer each of these 45 questions?
Right.
I have a different section, by the way. I have a secret non-edited section, which is about the sustainable development goals of the UN and how your company fulfills them.
Right.
Because that's more,
well,
I find it very important.
That I didn't want to dig a lot into, and we can talk about it another time, but like development was something that as we've purchased, we didn't really do like startups for a long time. And when we purchased our first one, which was Spoke, it was amazing the difference in their development cycle. So
what I was talking about was the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's not about software development, but how you treat the environment, how you look about your employees or things like this. That's what I find a very important section. That's why I've added a couple of questions for that. But that's also maybe for something else.
Do US companies tend to?
But they'd be like,
for that? I don't know that.
Yeah, we love the environment.
I mean, no, like I do love the environment.
No, I mean, like
these are
actually US
17
companies that
different
respond.
goals. So there are 17 different goals, and I'm fine if you have one or two somewhere, and if you're the only one or the best one, I may or may not choose you. But there's a reason why we don't have AWS in our stack. Their data centers are not 100% green.
Oh, right.
We use GCP and Azure before we use
we
AWS.
could do a whole session on like green IT.
The ethics of IT. Yeah.
Well,
that's something that I'm very interested in.
Like how to do it better and like all these things, because I think IT is definitely probably one of the major contributors to electronic waste. And so like it's something that I think about, especially when we talk about disposing of machines and stuff. And I feel like we do a whole episode on that too.
Yeah. We'll submit it to the site. We'll add it to the list of things to discuss next week. But thank you
or
for everybody
in 5 weeks. Bye.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Mike wants to press save.
See ya.
Yeah, let me stop the recording.
Yeah.